Um, I, for some reason, it's not letting me get on YouTube, so just give me a sec here.
Okay.
Um, for some reason, it's not. All right, I think we're good.
Okay, great. Welcome everyone. Thanks for the impromptu attendance, and we really appreciate you guys just being on and of course for McCall for putting together such a great email explanation about why we're meeting today. So we have a lot to cover in a short period of time. And since this is being recorded, we're going to do a really quick roll call since this is a formal board meeting, and in case there are people who may be calling in or listening, we just need to have a yes, I'm here, present, and I'll just go down the list and you can just say, and if obviously if somebody's not here, then we'll just mark that they're not here. Um, okay, so we'll go through really quickly. I'm going in alphabetical order. So Nora Barney,
Here.
Lori Barron,
Present.
Anne Penn Cox,
Present.
Karen Flipovich, she's out. Colette Getton,
Present.
Marissa Graybill,
I see Marissa, she's on.
Marissa's here.
Present. Sorry. Oh, the audio is not working. Present.
Marie Judish,
Here.
Christine Lux,
Present.
Lance Melvin,
Lance isn't able to join us today.
Melissa Nikolakakos,
Present.
Stephanie Olson,
Stephanie's not able to join either.
thank you. Doug Racing,
Present.
Melissa Romano,
Here.
Doug Rosberg. He's not here. Okay. Nicole Simonson, not able to make it. And then Allison Wilson.
Here.
Great. Thank you all. And I'm Caitlin. Sarah's here. McCall's here. I'm going to turn it over to McCall now.
Perfect. And I do see Lance jumping on. I know he's traveling though, so.
Oh, there he is. Okay. So Lance is joining.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you had a quorum.
We do. Thanks, Lance.
Okay. I might jump off if I get disrupted. I'm going to mute myself here, okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for jumping on and meeting with us today. I really appreciate it. I know we weren't planning on meeting until our next, hopefully in-person meeting, but this is obviously very important, making yourselves available for this discussion. After we met, after our last meeting, I reached out to the legislative bill drafters of House Bill 338 by Representative Romano and House Bill 628 by Representative Nikolakakos and asked them two questions that we were sort of, really bouncing around: the clarity on the applicability and transition sections of the bills, and then also really trying to better understand like the intent behind the assessments, the evaluation methodology, the interventions. I think those are the two questions that we really were trying to nail down and better understand. So after reviewing and speaking with them and really looking back through those applicability and transition sections of the bills, it was clear that school districts were not able to implement any early numeracy until the Board of Public Ed adopted rules. And so I reached out to the Secretary of State's office. I wanted to get an idea of what we could do at this point to get something in place before this upcoming school year. We knew that there was nothing we could do before the Jumpstart program. I know that was the intent. It was written in the bills, but there was nothing we could do. Rules take at least 2 meetings. There's timelines that have to be in place by set by the Secretary of State's office, and we wouldn't be able to meet any of those. So I was really looking at the school year. Unfortunately, the situation that we're in doesn't qualify for emergency rulemaking. There's no public health concern, welfare, so we don't qualify for that. Nor does it qualify for a temporary rule because whatever we did would have to be a permanent rule by October 1st. So we wouldn't be able to do anything there. So, however, the board can temporarily adopt a rule prior to the school year, and we could simultaneously work to revise that same rule prior to next school year. So that still all has to take place over the summer. And so all of that to say, we have until June 17th to file a rule with the Secretary of State. And so I'll get to the timeline here in a little bit. So hold that thought or hold any questions maybe that you have to that. So to the second question that I had asked the bill drafters about, they stated that students that are eligible for an intervention on the basis of literacy would not be required to qualify for an intervention program on the basis of numeracy as well. Rather, that the intent was that they would receive instruction for both. The intent was for that instruction to be combined to include both literacy and numeracy. So I really wanted to make sure that, you know, this was the intent from the actual bill sponsors. We're really lucky that we have both of them on this council. And so I did speak with both of them, and rather than speak for them here, I spoke with them both before this and asked if they wanted to speak to the group. So I guess I just turn it over to both of them and see if they wanted to weigh in here and sort of speak to their intent. And I'll just turn it over to you now.
Thanks, McCall. I'll speak a little bit. I think that you did a great job explaining my intent. My intent was and still is that a student would not need to qualify for both interventions to be served. They could qualify for one or the other and still receive services for both. And yeah, I appreciate you just really pulling this group together quickly, so we can vote on a temporary rule or talk about a temporary rule, because it was also my intent that this could be implemented right away.
I think I'll just kind of add a me too, same for my intent that either one, whether it is literacy or numeracy, they should be teaching both of those things to them, and you can basically qualify under either one and then get the services for both. So just a me too.
Well, thanks to you both. This was, I think, knowing that we had to pull all of this together really quickly, I just didn't really want to speak out of turn. And obviously, there's a lot of work that we still have to do in this group. And so I think the ability to be able to temporarily adopt a rule still puts us in a position to do a lot of really good work. So given all of this information, I consulted with a few folks to sort of figure out how to best proceed. And so knowing that we have very little time to act, I did put together a rule that I think really follows that intent, but also puts us in a position to do the best we can for this upcoming year with what we know school districts probably have already done. And so on page 2 of your packet, and I will share my screen. So on page 2 of your packet, there's a draft rule. It is a new rule, which is 1054-903. This is actually already in the early literacy targeted intervention subchapter. So it already lives in the right place. So when we revise the rule for the next year, it'll be in the right place. So it basically says that if a school district assessed students already in April, May, or June, because that's what the 1054-901 says, that they can enroll eligible students in early intervention classrooms this fall for 4-year-olds. And they can include both English language arts and mathematics and numeracy content standards in those courses. Now we know that this also then would require that there be a small change to the early childhood education standards to ensure that we pull in the mathematics and numeracy content standards. So that's why you see 1063-110 here. And so there is a small reference to that here. And so I'll just scroll down to that. Thankfully, it was a very small and simple change, and just adding that language here, which you'll see here in 2. A is the English language arts and literacy standards. And then C is the mathematics and numeracy standards here. So I'll stop sharing that. And then just wanted to also note that on page 7 of your packet, this is where you'll see the timeline. And again, I said that it is a very tight timeline. I'll tell you that the Board of Public Education has already scheduled a special meeting on Monday, the 16th. They'll be meeting at 8:30 a.m. to review and take action on the recommendation that you all make here today. After that, like I said, we have to file the proposal notice on the 17th. Public comment will then begin on June 27th and end on July 18th. I'll hold a virtual public hearing on July 18th. You can find those details on our website if there are folks that request that. The board will then review public comment and take final action on the adoption notice, either July 25th or 28th. Either of those will meet the timeline. And then we must file the adoption notice with the Secretary of State on July 29th. The adoption notice will then be published by the Secretary of State on August 8th. And the earliest the rules can be effective is on August 9th. So assuming we get this all done, it'll probably be the fastest rules ever adopted by the Board of Public Ed, but understanding that if we don't meet this timeline, that we don't get it done this year and then we have to wait till next year. So I know that was a lot. And so at this time, I will sort of stand by and see what questions you all have, and turn it over to the advisory council. And this is really your time to have discussion with each other. Lori, I see your hand up.
Hi there. Thanks for your quick work on this. If and when all this goes through and August 9th sits and we can teach both, the work ahead of us past August 9th would be then to come and develop a numeracy tool and all of that, right? So right now we use the literacy tool and we can teach both if this passes. And then our work after August 9th would be develop a separate numeracy tool, and then we can use either the numeracy tool and or the literacy tool. And if they qualify in either one, they could receive both services. Is that the intent?
Correct. That is the intent, because we recognize at this point, most school districts have already used the early literacy evaluation methodology. And there's going to be no way that this group can develop an early numeracy evaluation methodology by June 17th.
Yeah, and so we can, our kids that are already in, summer jumpstart, we should just stick to the old rules and not push it, right? But for the upcoming school year, even though we've not used a numeracy tool for this school year, if this passes, we can use the numeracy tool. I mean, we can use the numeracy content standards.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Lance, I see your hand up.
I really appreciate the sponsors' insights and their on the ground expertise and experience in ushering these bills through passage. and it makes a lot of sense. I just want to make sure I document here that, if this were not the case, our school districts would be put into the position of having to bifurcate classes. And you might have to have a separate class for numeracy and a separate class for literacy. And there was never any discussion of that during the course of passage. So I just kind of want to further reinforce that I think the sponsors are spot on in their recollection. And from my recollection, there was never any discussion of having to separate these so that you would have to, only teach numeracy to kids who were qualified under the numeracy standard and vice versa. So I'm in strong support of everything you've said here and of your proposal. And if I have to jump off of here, I hope that you will consider asking if there's any objection, and in the absence of an objection, noting that the group approved it unanimously so that I can be part of that unanimity. Thank you.
Thanks, Lance. Christine, I see your hand up.
Yes, thanks, McCall, and thanks to the group. I just wanted to remind everyone that the way that these content standards came together were pulled from our Montana Early Learning Standards that have recently been under review in really high-level conversation among different work groups, both representing preschool and the early primary grades across the state. And so that I feel comfortable just in this kind of developmental guidelines and learning standard perspective, kind of speaking on behalf of our higher ed group, and Allison, you can certainly chime in as well, but that I don't feel like this is rushed. I feel like these standards were put in place the way that we wrote these and incorporated this last time. Just kind of on the record, I just wanted to throw out there and just to reassure everyone that these are accurate, these are developmentally appropriate, these are the math and numeracy skills that children would be focused on.
Yeah, thanks, Christine. And I do want to follow up on something that Lori asked a question to, because I don't think that I did a good job of explaining what work that this group still has to do. This rule really is meant to still be temporary, because I do think that it's important that we still build out an evaluation methodology for early numeracy. I think that is still really important. And so I want to make clear that this group's work is still not done. The rule is very specific that it's for the 25-26 school year only. I think the board has expectations that this group will make a recommendation similar to the one that we see for 1054-901 that is specific to early literacy. I think it's really important that we keep that in mind, that will be revised to still include those important skills for early numeracy. And so, Lori, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's why I said at the beginning, I specifically named it 1054-903, because it will be revised to include those specific skills for early numeracy, because I want it to live in that same section. It's not meant to be a rule that lasts longer than this next school year. And Pen, I see your hand up.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, McCall, and we're still thinking with evaluation methodology, developing that in the next month or two, continuing to meet this summer to do that work. Is that correct?
Yeah, good question. And I was gonna have that conversation when we get to next steps, but super happy to talk about it now. We had discussed having a meeting on June 25th. I think for a lot of reasons, but also based on the doodle poll, there really wasn't a good time from those that filled that out where majority of people were available. And now given that we have this rule, we do have a little bit more time to get that work done. And so I was going to propose to this group that we think about maybe late July, early August of bringing this group together and scheduling 2 meetings back to back where we have maybe longer days or full days of meetings and just get the work done, frankly. And my hope was that we could then get the work done and bring those recommendations forward to the Board of Public Ed for their meeting that is September 11th and 12th. Because my thought process was kind having 3 board meetings, and there's a little wiggle room in there, so we could prolong that even a little bit more, but having something that's then adopted in January by the Board of Public Ed, so that it gives school districts some time to see what then is adopted. Because again, schools are going to want to start assessing right in the springtime. So we want to give them time to see what's been put in place. So as they start thinking about what assessments they want to use, they might need to go out and purchase something or acquire something. So giving them some time to think through what that looks like. I'd love to hear from actually some school folks on if that's an appropriate time frame. Am I behind the 8 ball? Like, is that too late? Just trying to think through what that might look like. The effective date doesn't have to be until probably, well, we can think about that, but yeah, I'm just trying to think through timeline right now, but I think it would be appropriate to go to the board in September.
Since I asked a question, I think that sounds great. I feel like this group, like our ancillary groups, did a really great job of like pushing out the direction we were headed in the meantime before things got adopted. So like it was very much on people's radar. Curriculum was starting to be purchased, interventions and assessments even before things went through, because we were really transparent about our conversation. So I think that timeline is totally appropriate. I'm in support for sure.
Okay, anyone else have any questions about the rule, the timeline?
I just want to throw out there, as we think about evaluation methodologies, that I think many school districts are wrapping up math reviews right now or will be in the fall with updated standards. And so the sooner that we can possibly have those evaluation methodologies, I think the better. So just, I think it's doable to get it by January for sure, but sooner the better for districts.
Okay, that's good to keep in mind. All right, before we jump into consensus on the draft rule, and I appreciated Lance's insight on this, last year or 2023, when the advisory council met, you all worked and basically took action through a consensus process. We haven't had the conversation yet about how you all would do that this time around. And I guess before I made an assumption that that's how you wanted to continue taking action or agreeing on recommendations to the board. I wanted to make sure that that's how you all wanted to continue with your recommendations. Can I guess without dissent, yes, everyone agree with that?
Yeah, McCall, it seemed to work well the last time. I'm comfortable with that.
I thought so too. Okay. So basically what we'll do is each time that we will work through some things, we'll ask for feedback from each of you. And as we move through making recommendations to the board or pieces of rule, or if we're trying to find consent on, rule revisions or recommendations, we'll just ask if there's any dissent or lack of consensus. If there is, that's fine. We'll move through it. We'll try to address those concerns. If we get to a point where we're not meeting consensus, then it might be a time when we have to take a vote. We've not had to do that. This group has been very great, I think, to work with, and you guys have all been really great in finding middle ground with one another. And I think you all have done really good work. So, but that is how we will then move forward. Sound good? All right. Well, I think we'll move to item number 4 then, and we will do consensus on the draft rule. All right. So anyone have any questions, concerns, feedback on the draft rule or on the revision to the early childhood education draft? Seeing none. All right, we will move on to recommend that to the Board of Public Ed. If anyone's interested in tuning in on Monday. It'll be live on YouTube. Feel free to tune into that. And then we will file it on Tuesday. Very fast and furious. All right. And then does anyone have any questions about next steps? I think hearing, at least from Ann Penn, I didn't hear from anyone else, that we're good to just sort of axe the June 25th meeting. Maybe I'll send out a doodle now for some dates late July, early August. And let's just get a couple meetings on the calendar and let's plan to crank out the evaluation methodology. Let's work on those crosswalk documents. Let's just get some of that work done, and then we'll reevaluate from there on what else we might need to do and see if we need to plan some other meetings. Does that work for everybody? And as always, we'll have Zoom options, so if people need to use that as well, totally fine. Caitlin, did you want to weigh in on anything? Caitlin's on kid duty.
I know. No, I'm good. Thank you for covering my part today, Nicole.
Yes, no problem.
Yeah, it's the out of school and sick kid time of year. So thanks, everyone.
No problem. Well, we do have a couple folks watching from the attendees section. So is there any public comment at this time? Please raise your hand. All right, seeing none. Any final comments from folks on the council? Yeah, Colette.
I have a comment. Do you know how excited I am to get back out my Unifix cubes, counting bears, geometric shapes, and our people? Like we made these little kits that have been in storage. Those puppies are coming out. I'm excited.
I know this group is very excited to do early numeracy, for sure.
I'm just excited to be working with everybody, McCall, and appreciate everything you've done. That's a lot of work you've done to set the stage for success here. And what we're really doing is opening up the opportunity for kids who need help to get it as soon as possible. And I just think it's a really great effort you've put here. And I'm looking forward to working with the council and with you further.
Well, it would not happen without all of you. It's good for kids. Thanks to all of you for jumping on this call today. We needed 9 and literally all of you showed up. So thank you. Really appreciate it. All right, we're adjourned. Please fill out the